Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Breber and alongside me is Logan Camden, and we are back with some more football to talk. Another really exciting standalone game to start the year. Eagles-Packers in Brazil, of course. Logan, the Eagles end up taking this one 34-29. Unfortunately, at the very end of this game, Jordan Love does come up hobbled. We have no update on what's going on with that at this time, but obviously hope that he is okay. But it is an Eagles win on the day, Logan. What was your biggest takeaway from this?
I think the Eagles have gone up even another notch offensively than they were last year, man. I think they've climbed into a new tier with the addition of Kellen Moore as their new offensive coordinator. Obviously used to be with Dallas, was with the Chargers last year, is now in Philly. And with the addition of Saquon Barkley, there's just a new dynamic, man. It makes them really hard to guard when you have this much talent all over the field. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, and I still think an elite offensive line. Obviously, they're going to take a little bit of a step back without Jason Kelce. You can't replace a guy like that. He's a Hall of Famer. But I thought for the most part, Cam Jurgens held his own up front, and this offensive line did a really great job. Barkley in his debut tonight, 3 touchdowns, 132 total yards of offense. Dancing after he gets past the line of scrimmage, exploding through holes.
Yeah.
To me, this is clearly the best offensive line he's ever played behind.
Oh, my God.
It's not even close. Like, we're going to watch Saquon this year thrive in a completely new way. You see his ability in the passing game, too, with that TD. It was a great lob from Jalen Hurts, great touch on that ball. There's just so much talent here, and Jalen Hurts doesn't have to do a whole lot in this offense for this offense to be great, too. That's another thing that I want to touch on. We talked about in the offseason, Carson, how concerned we were about Jalen Hurts coming into this season. Last year, 15 interceptions, 9 fumbles. It was the least efficient year of Jalen Hurts' career. And personally, I don't think there's a QB that has lost more stock for me over the last season and change than Jalen Hurts. In this game, 2 horrid interceptions, like inexcusable ones. An interception on his own side of the field in triple coverage, an interception in the end zone out of the pocket on the run. And then not just that, 3 more very interceptable passes on the day. And they're not just like, oh, there was a defender in the vicinity. These are balls that are in the defensive back's hands. One of them was a pick 6. I mean, he was taking that back to the house. Like, he fumbles a snap at the goal line. Like, I want to be clear about something. Like, I think that Hurts is not completely a byproduct of this great offense and all the talent around him, but I don't think he's like an elite quarterback the way that maybe we thought about him 2 years ago. Like, he is flawed at reading the field. He is flawed as a decision maker. And one thing that was abundantly clear to me, especially after watching Lamar last night, he's not close to that level of a scrambler. Like, when you see when plays break down, 1, there's just a little moment of hesitation with Hurts where he doesn't want to fully commit. And 2, when he does get going, he doesn't have that kind of agility and speed. Like, he's just not on Lamar's level in that way. And that's why I am still confident that this Eagles offense is going to be great week in, week out. If Hurts can just get the ball in space to these playmakers, A.J. Brown can do his thing and can get wide open. I mean, he torches Jair Alexander on that TD with that double move. Devontae Smith is awesome after the catch when he gets the ball in his hands. And, again, we see what the addition of Barkley does. So my big takeaway is with Kellen Moore, with a brilliant offensive mind back in this system, with all this talent, with this awesome offensive line, you're looking at what is likely going to be one of the best offenses in the NFL this season. How high can they climb is ultimately going to be on Jalen Hurts and how mistake-free he can play, how much better he can be as a decision maker. Carson, I'm going to be frank, like, this was a really ugly first game back after we had so many questions in the offseason. I don't know. I was really disappointed with Jalen tonight. They ultimately do enough to get the job done, but there's a lot to be cleaned up after this game.
And he did enough on the final drive is where I do want to give him credit. He used his legs. Now, he did get sort of a bailout from just the really dumb hold on Kenny Clark, who grabbed Saquon once Hurts was already starting to scramble. Like, that was just act of charity from the Packers, and there were a bunch of penalties throughout this game. It was very sloppy in that way. But After that, I mean, he made several plays on that drive with his legs, had the big run for a first down where he fought for some extra yardage, and then he delivered the ball to Devontae to basically ice this game, get that final big first down. I want to give him credit for that, but this was not the performance that you wanted to see from Jalen Hurts after last year, because there were two major areas in which the Eagles shockingly regressed last year. One was their defense, because it was the dominant 70 sack unit from the year prior that had been every bit as dominant as their offense in the year that they reached the Super Bowl. And then that fell off to one of the worst defenses in the league statistically last season, significantly underperforming their personnel, their level of talent. And the other was Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts going from this hyper efficient MVP level quarterback to basically a league average starter who struggled in a lot of ways. And you mentioned, Logan, if you just go with every aspect of Hurts's game that was concerning from last year, and you sort of examine how he performed in this game, what were we worried about? Turnovers. Well, he's got 3 of them in this one. 2 of them absolutely awful. The fumble, that's not on him. That's on Jurgens. You mentioned he did fumble again, but I'm talking about the lost fumble early in the game. But those picks are as bad as they get. If you think about his ability to read the field, I mean, that is largely the problem with both of those interceptions, throwing into traffic in inexcusable situations, getting the ball out quickly. His time to throw last year was one of the longest in the league. And yeah, he can make plays with his legs. That's part of it, but also just taking too long to make decisions. I didn't think we saw progress there tonight. And performing under pressure. He was really bad under pressure last year, 6 touchdowns to 8 picks when he was pressured. I thought that he made some very questionable decisions under pressure tonight. So it's like every category that I would have liked to see improvement in, we did not whatsoever. And you mentioned some of the almost interceptions, the fake screen where he's looking for the shot to the end zone, and then he goes back to the fake screen. That should have been a pick 6. The ball where A.J. Brown had to play defense on Jair Alexander, that absolutely should have been a pick. Like, it was really, really rough. The quarterback play overall was really rough in this game. And we'll get to Jalen Hurts. We'll get to Jordan Love, I mean, but he also wasn't really able to do that much as a rusher throughout this game. I thought the designed runs were really easily contained. I wanted to see the Eagles go back to more RPOs. I want to see them go back to more play action. I want to see them simplify his role as a decision maker within this offense. And I want to see them weaponize his athleticism. But yeah, this just was not an encouraging debut from him. His playmakers made plays, and that's what he has. He has playmakers out the ass in this offense, and Saquon was incredible. It is amazing to see him free in an actual high-functioning NFL offense instead of the hellscape that is the New York Giants. Those are the encouraging aspects of today for the Eagles. It's not what we saw from Jalen Hurts.
Not at all, and I want to highlight that last interception that he threw in the end zone. Just situationally as a quarterback, every single snap, you have to be aware of the consequences and what you need to do in case stuff doesn't break your way. I know that you want to be the cowboy. You want to be the gunslinger. You want to be the hero. You want to scramble out of the pocket and make that throw. First of all, cardinal sin. You don't throw across your body back across to the middle of the field. He was flushed out right. At that point, it's 3rd down. And I thought the Eagles, for the most part, performed pretty poorly on 3rd down on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
That's just a ball you can't throw. You've got to take the points, man. At this late in the game, that's just a crucial moment where you cannot give up. I mean, single-handedly, that's a 6-point swing, right? You give away 3 points. He single-handedly gives the Packers 3 points on the other end when he has the turnover on his own side of the field. That could very well have been a 14-point swing with those 2 plays, you know? And I just want Jalen to be more aware, to be more cognizant, and because those are avoidable, right? I know that you don't like the Rodgers. I'm just going to throw it out of bounds. Sometimes you got to eat a play, man. You can't be the hero every single time. And, you know, in different situations, if your back's against the wall, right, you got to go to the end zone, go for it. That's not an area where I like it. And I like the Eagles. I think they're going to be okay offensively. I am still very concerned about Philadelphia's defense in a serious context, Carson. Not only do they have a new offensive coordinator in Kellen Moore, they have a new defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio. And up front, I think they're going to be fine. I buy into this pass rush. The big boys up front, Davis, Carter, Huff, all those guys, they're going to be okay there. Where I am concerned is over the middle of the field, and the secondary overall. We touched on some of these numbers last year. Opposing quarterbacks last year, Carson, against the Eagles, 4,300 passing yards, 35 TDs with 9 picks. And these are some of their rankings. They were the number 30 scoring defense. They were the number 30 defense in terms of points per drive, 31 in defensive yards per drive. They were the number 31 red zone defense, and they were the number 31 third down defense, and the number 30 red zone defense. I mean, bottom of the league across the board. And specifically in big spots in this game, they get gashed, right? Again, they escape from this game, in my opinion. The Kraft play, they motion him out. Reed comes on the end around. Eagles get burnt. There's another one where Jordan Love steps up in the pocket. This is a 3rd and 10, completely busted coverage. Reed burns them for a monster TD, the longest TD of Jordan Love's career, where he snaps that safety's ankles. There's another one where Nakobe Dean bites on a play action and Kraft gets out for a big gain. It's just, that was the Achilles heel of Philadelphia. And I'm not out on Philadelphia by any means. Football is it's a long season. And the beauty of the 17 games is it gives teams time to fix on some of these mistakes. But the biggest mistake that Philadelphia is going to have to fix is this defense. The big shot plays. That is what sunk their ship last year. It's why Tampa Bay dogged them. It's why they skidded all the way in the back half of the season. They've got to clean up the shot plays because for the most part, I think this is going to be a good run defense. For the most part, they bottled up Josh Jacobs in the first half. He got 8 a little bit in the second half. Wilson had some nice snaps.
Yeah.
But I think this is going to be a solid run defense. I think they're going to be able to put pressure on the QB. I'm really concerned about this back end and them avoiding the big shot plays that are going to kill them because it almost did. Even down on the final drive, Reed escapes out and Jordan Love dots him up for a big gain to get to the 50-yard line where it almost set them up for a Hail Mary. That, to me, is still Philadelphia's biggest issue that they need to address the rest of this season.
I thought it was a mixed bag from the Philly defense in this game. I thought that there was improvement. I do want to see more. I do want to give them props for executing situationally because they were put in 2 really awful situations in that first half. Turnovers inside their own 20, I believe both of them deep in their own territory. They held up. They held the Packers offense to field goals both times. That was big time stuff. I also thought, as you mentioned, the front, which has never been the concern here. I mean, they've just been stockpiling talent there for years. Looked good. I thought that they brought some pressure that really rattled Jordan Love. I also thought Zach Bond was quite good in this game, and he could be a valuable addition to that linebacking core. So there were definitely things that they did well. But you mentioned it's the explosives. I mean, that's where it's just like the Jaden Reed crossing routes, which just several times absolutely killed them. All the plays that you mentioned, some of the lack of discipline against motion. They were very disciplined on the flea flicker, so that was a spot where none of the eye candy got them, and they were able to limit what could have been an explosive play. But it's just kind of surprising overall on this day. They allow over 7 yards per play, so again, they had their positive moments. Jordan Love was off. I think they get some credit for that. I also think that he just sucked in this game, and a lot of that is on him. So it's a step in the right direction from the defense that looked like one of the worst in football, especially in the second half of last year. But I'm not getting resounding answers on either side of the ball for Philly. And I want to be clear. I expect them to be a playoff team. I mean, they are just oozing with talent. And even if Hurts is basically an average starter, neither of us had him as a top 10 starter. He was one of my first couple guys off. But if he's in that 12 to 16 range, they should still be a really, really good offense. Because, Logan, I think that Saquon is maybe a top 3 running back. I mean, it's just such a special combination of explosive quickness, power, rushing, and receiving, where this dude can run a beautiful wheel route. He can have a physical run for a touchdown where he's carrying dudes with him into the end zone. His longest run of the day, he just explodes through the hole and then runs through a dude for a few yards. Like, he's just going to be special in this offense. The line is still really, really good. Like, they have all that in place, and I think the defense will be okay. But I'm still worried about the quarterback position, and I still don't think this defense is just going to do a 180 and look anything like the defense that we saw in 2022, for example. Before we move on to the Packers side of this, where do you think Saquon would rank in that best running back conversation? Do you think he's top 3, top 5?
I mean, situation is everything, and the situation is so much better, right?
Yeah.
It's a mutually beneficial relationship, right? All this talent on the outside with Goddard, with Devontae Smith, with AJ Brown, it allows Saquon to sometimes have some lighter boxes. It also goes the same way when Saquon's eating. It
Mhm.
allows the wideouts to have one-on-one matchups. It just everybody eats it, as you said. They're oozing with talent. I'd probably say I mean, there's not many guys. It's the multifaceted impact. It's the fact that Saquon can basically do anything. I would have him. I'm trying to think about guys I'd have him behind. There's the list isn't
CMC's
long.
one. CMC
Yeah,
one, that's inarguable. I think the next 3 are Bijan, Saquon, and Breece Hall.
I take Saquon over Bijan and Breeze.
What's tough about Breece is he's such a great receiving back. He's so explosive. Obviously, he doesn't have Saquon's power, but he's so ridiculously fast. And his efficiency in production in New York behind that line with that quarterback play has been pretty incredible. So I think that those 3 are in a very similar tier. I'm also really high on Bijan. He's a good pass catcher. He is just a special runner of the football. His contact balance, like, he's a hell of a running back. So I think that those guys are all in that next tier, but Saquon could easily have the best season of anybody not named CMC because now he's gone from hellish situation to great situation. So I'm excited on that front. Let's talk about the Packers, though, Logan, because this is a team that has been very, very hyped up throughout the offseason that a lot of people have seen as a contender in the making. Obviously, had a really strong finish to last year, won a playoff game, could have won another. They were very close to doing it. What do you make of this debut from them?
It's a mixed bag. I loved the timely plays that Green Bay connected on when Jordan Love and this team needed it. Anytime they needed a big shot play, he came through. Now, Love looked off the rest of the game. It was strange, like just inaccurate, like with ball placement. There's just some plays where his receiver has a nice break on a play and he just throws it, off, like to the right when it needs to be on the left. He throws it high when it needs to be low. I liked what I saw for the defense from the most part, but it's a lot of the back end stuff, man. And a lot of missed tackles. Like you're going up against elite skill position talent. That's what I like about matchups against 2 playoff contenders early is you're going to get a really good gauge immediately of if this team's a legit contender or not. My big concern is over the middle of the field and them really being able to put pressure on the QB. I like the names they got up front, and I think they've got a lot of big boys like Kenny Clark. Hurts had a lot of time in the pocket, though, man. You talk about him holding on to the football. I just don't view this defense as like elite. I think they're average at kind of everything. And obviously, I hope Jordan Love is okay. That's going to change the complexity of this entire season if he's not
Yeah.
available. They didn't get a ton of push. They didn't put a ton of pressure on Hurts. Saquon and them ate. And again, this is against one of the best offensive lines in football. So I'll cut them a little bit of slack in that regard. They'll probably look better against other teams, but that's not the point, right? This is an elite offensive line. This is a great gauge of if you're, if your defensive line is among the best of the best, and I don't think they are.
No.
They didn't get a ton of pressure on Hurts. Saquon did his thing, busted a lot of runs, and they missed a lot of tackles. I think the strength of this defense is going to be the secondary. It's going to be Alexander and McKinney on the back end locking everything up. But it was pretty underwhelming. I just don't see anything that this Packers defense does at an elite level, and that's what worries me, right? It seems like if we get this kind of same output from Green Bay, Jordan Love's going to have to win a shootout damn near every week,
Mhm.
I'm disappointed. I had Green Bay as like a contender on the outside looking in. They didn't really do anything in this game to, convince me to move them up into, like a legit contender right on the cusp. They're still on the outside to me.
I viewed the Packers as a playoff team throughout the offseason. That would still be my expectation for them, presuming that Love is able to play, that this isn't season ending or anything super serious. But I was surprised by how high people were getting on them. Like I had them as a 10-win team, a first round exit.
Not to cut you off, dude. I saw today the Ringer posted a graphic. Every one of their writers who are on this poll except for one who picked the Lions, every one of them picked the Packers as their NFC champion.
That's so surprising to me. As their NFC champion?
Every one of them except one. One writer took the Lions. Everybody
Nobody
else
took the
took
49ers?
everyone else
Oh
took
my
Green
God.
Bay.
The Niners are going to the Super Bowl. If nobody's picking them, they should be the favorite. They're the most talented team. Neither of us picked the Niners, but that's because I'm trying to be different. Turns out I'm being the same as everybody else, except not even because everybody's picking the Packers. It hasn't made sense to me. And there's a few reasons. I am high on Jordan Love. I like Jordan Love. He played a bad football game today, but I am more confident in him bouncing back than I am in this defense. But even with Jordan Love, I get it. In the NFC, you're not talking about elite quarterback competition, but there's nothing to suggest that he's a tier 1 quarterback, right? Top 10 quarterback. He played like that down the home stretch of last year, but he hasn't at any point reached the level of course, a Mahomes, of course, an Allen, of a Herbert, of a Burrow, of a Lamar. And so then you look at the team around him and it's like, yeah, LaFleur is a great coach. And I do like the weapons that they have. I like the offensive pieces they have around Love, but they're not insane. And then this defense just was not good last year. And I'm concerned about that group. They were not good against the run last year. I didn't see much to change that today. I thought they did a good job of handling some of the Hurts scrambles and design runs. They never let him get an explosive play on the ground, but against the more conventional run game, I mean, Saquon was able to mostly shred them. Like, even his stats don't look as good as they should because he had to fall on a fumble and because he slipped on the first play from scrimmage, but he was very efficient outside of a couple weird plays like that. And last year, they were 26th in yards allowed per drive. They were 23rd in points. And I get it. I like the McKinney ad. That's great. He's a great player. He made a huge play in this game. Like, absolutely. He improves this defense, but you're coming from a not good place. And so I think that this is probably going to be a pretty average defense. I like Rashawn Gary. I like Preston Smith. I thought Gary played a really good game, but they let up a lot of explosive plays. Again, they weren't impressive against the run. They committed a lot of penalties in this game, and that's my concern. I think that there had to be dramatic improvement in this defense. I don't know if people expected it just as a subtraction of Joe Barry, that was going to immediately turn things around, but I just don't think that the personnel is there for this to be a very good defense. And I think it is a very good offense, but I don't know that it's like an elite offense. And Jordan Love has to be way, way, way better for this team to even reach my expectations for them, much less everybody else's, which, again, I don't think is happening regardless, because I just don't think the defense is where it needs to be.
Yeah, another guy I want to give a shout out to. I thought Quay Walker had a really good game too, not just tackling and coverage too, but this is a young defense. And the thing about a young defense, this is a new defensive coordinator in here. I always say this with young defenses. I said it a lot last year. There's room to grow. You know, they just didn't show us anything in this game. Like, and I think I'm trying to think. I had Green Bay and Philly as like two of my last two playoff teams in. And obviously Philadelphia just won, but Philadelphia is definitely concretely above Green Bay for me right now. And as I said earlier, Green Bay is like barely in my Super Bowl bubble. Like, they're just not a top tier contender to me, right? There's just so many other teams in the NFC that I like more. Like, I'd have San Francisco above them. I'd probably have Dallas above them. I definitely have Philadelphia above them. Detroit. Green Bay is on the outside looking in. And more what this game reinforced to me is that, dude, Jordan Love's going to have to play at an MVP level for them to be average, for them to be good, you know? And
average? You think for them to be average, he has to play at an MVP level?
I mean, to reach like 10 wins, which I consider about
better than average.
Slightly, you know, I think he's going to have to play at an elite level and carry this team, right? I think he's going to have to do that week in, week out. And I do think this defense is going to improve. Again, first game with a new defensive coordinator, a lot of young guys on defense. But they got to get better, and they got to make it happen fast. I will cut both of these teams a little slack. This is a weird-ass game.
For sure.
In Brazil, all the penalties, which also Green Bay needs to clean up. That's what kind of cost them, too. I mean, they would have gotten the ball back in this game.
Exactly. And that's maybe the most damning part of this performance from the defense, that they could not get off the field on that final drive. They couldn't even give their offense a chance, but Kenny Clark doesn't hold. And they do get off the field.
Yeah, it's 10 penalties for 71 yards. The field was atrocious, right? There's a lot of weirdness about this game, and so I don't want to write all of my conclusions about Green Bay, but it was a less than impressive introductory performance to this season. And again, as we mentioned, a ton of people have the Packers going to the Super Bowl, and I just don't see it right now.
Well, listen, you talk about how Jordan Love has to be great every week. I mean, he was bad in this game. He was bad. And I think there have been some people who have been skeptical of Love being lauded as the next franchise QB. He was awesome in the second half of last year. In the first half of last year, I wasn't convinced. I thought that the decision making wasn't consistently there. I thought that the accuracy wasn't always there. And then he started to really put it together. And I do believe in Jordan Love, but this was a really bad game from him. I mean, he goes 17 of 35 on the day, which is just brutal inefficiency. And the Packers offense looked disoriented from the start of this game. They burned 3 timeouts by the 10:30 mark in the second quarter. Love was forcing a lot of balls into traffic early. And we can praise the Philly defense for getting some good situational stops when they were put in bad positions. But the Packers offense was out of sorts, could not take advantage of basically getting handed 2 easy opportunities at touchdowns. We talk about Hurts throwing awful picks and throwing awful should have been picks. Same goes for Jordan Love. He should have thrown a pick 6 after he slipped trying to throw that ball away. The corner had an easy jump on it. That ball was in his hands. He had a bad miss targeting Jaden Reed, and then the very next play throws the ball behind Romeo Doubs, who dropped it, but like really it was a pretty tougher catch than it needed to be. He has another miscommunication with Jaden Reed, I believe, on the next drive. He throws that horribly advised ball off his back foot that is picked off by Blankenship. Like, it was just a really poor performance from Love outside of some explosive plays, mostly to an open Jaden Reed, who I thought was absolutely incredible in this game. The end around, but of course, again, the crossers, I mean, making a guy miss on that 70-yard touchdown. He was awesome. Jordan Love was not close to that. He has to be sharper. He has to be better. This offense is everything for this team because we talk about their defensive limitations. And I honestly don't think that Love has to be superhuman. Like, I think this team is going to run the ball well. I thought that we saw that today. I mean, Jacobs was efficient. I thought Emmanuel Wilson looked really quite good. They didn't even have Marshawn Lloyd in this game. And again, there's not like that flashy number 1 name, but I really like Jaden Reed. I like Doubs. Like, I think in totality, you have a solid receiving core here. So, and you have a great coach, maybe above all else, who is going to make life easy on you, who's going to deceive defenses with motion and establish the run and open up play action, take the top off of defenses with that. Like, all this great stuff that you get just from having LaFleur as your coach. But Jordan Love has to play like a top 10 sort of quarterback, right? I mean, that was the turning point in their season last year. It was him making the leap, him flipping the switch. Today, we got the first half of last year, Jordan Love, and that's obviously not going to cut it.
I completely agree. I mean, it completely hinges on the health and the performance of Love, man. I mean, if we get this guy, I mean, they were below 500, right? They went on a heater down the second half of last year. That's completely what turned their season around. And we can't have it. I mean, he's got to be more accurate. He's got to be a better decision maker. Yeah, and I don't know. I will cut him a little slack. I don't know what was going on with that calf. If we didn't hear anything about it before the game, I don't know if it was playing on that field. If that, maybe footing and his bottom leg just got messed up. I'm not 100% sure what was going on there, but they were massaging it out. He was eating a banana on the sideline, so I don't know if that played into it at all, but yeah, I think Love has to be great for this team to, I think to sniff 8, 9, 10 wins. For them to be an average team, I think he's got to be great. I really mean that. I think Love has to carry this team on his back, as most quarterbacks do. But the difference is that Hurts has all this collateral talent, right? Brock Purdy has all this collateral talent. Jared Goff has all this collateral talent. Jordan Love doesn't have that. He doesn't have an elite offensive line. He doesn't have any elite elite skill position talents. Again, I think Reed is the best of the bunch, and he is
Mhm.
explosive as hell, but you don't have any guys that can shoulder that kind of number one load. That's why it's so important that Jordan Love is great week in, week out, is because he doesn't have the margins. He doesn't have the elite guys around him to carry the offense.
Yep. Well, we hope that he's healthy. We're going to take a quick break. Then we'll talk about some other weird aspects of this game and take a quick little look towards the upcoming slate of games this weekend after some quick words from DraftKings. NFL Week 1 is here, and a new season means new ways to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Fans have spoken. We want to bet on touchdowns. DraftKings heard us and is delivering.
DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple like picking a player to score a touchdown.
Ready to do a touchdown dance of your own? New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $250 in bonus bets instantly, plus 1 month of NFL Plus Premium on us. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code NERDS. That's code NERDS for new customers to get $250 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 and 1 month of NFL Plus Premium on us. Offer ends September 19th, only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. So, Logan, you've touched on this a couple times at this point, but obviously this was a very, very strange game from the jump. Part of that was the field, everybody slipping and sliding around. Part of that was this being the first game in Brazil. Part of that was this being the first Friday night game. It was also on Peacock. Everything about this game was strange. And then you have just like the poor quality of play early. You have the flag fest. It was a weird game through and through. What do you think about the NFL playing games in Brazil? What do you think about like the overall push for more international games? Does that make sense to you? Does that justify the toll on these players in terms of scheduling, travel? Do you think it's a worthwhile pursuit?
The one thing I really did enjoy from this game was the energy of the game. I thought the crowd was plugged in. I thought they had
Yeah.
a great time. I loved the atmosphere, the PA announcer, the chanting during the game. I thought, like, from a vibes perspective, I thought it was really, really cool. And if this didn't make money, the NFL wouldn't do it, right? I think that is the NFL's bottom line. They want to make money. Obviously, I think they did with this. It's why they pursued this endeavor. I'm really traditionalist when it comes to the NFL, and I'm also pro player. I was an opponent to the 17-game season. I think it is a major, major burden on these guys playing 16 games already, only having one bye week. I thought when we graduated to the 17-game season, we should have given every team 2 bye weeks. It's a lot. It's a major toll. So I don't like football games on Fridays. To be frank, I don't like the fact that they're playing on, I think we're playing every day of the week this year. Tuesday, Wednesday,
It's weird.
Friday. We already play Monday, Thursday, Sunday. So as a traditionalist who's been watching the NFL for a long time, I'm normally an opponent to change. I like them branching out. I think it's cool to give the fans that, maybe would never have an opportunity to go see these games. That aspect of it, I really do like, but it is a major toll. I feel for the players, man. I mean, the travel down here, the travel to the stadium, having to get back up to the States. I'm pro player first. You know what I mean? I'm always looking out. I want to benefit those guys. And ultimately, I don't think that's the NFL's first priority. I think it's the bottom dollar, and they're going to do whatever they can.
Absolutely.
I do like this for the fans, though. For the Brazil fans, I think we got a game in Germany again. For the fans in England, from that aspect, I really do think it's cool, and I think it's a different energy and vibe. As long as it's, as long as the players don't come out and say that it's taking a major toll on them, physically or mentally, I'm okay with it. It is. I don't like all the streaming platforms, though. I'll go ahead and I'll say that.
Oh, yeah,
I think that's
silly. No, it's ridiculous.
That's so rough on all the fans, man. Like, my dad couldn't watch the game, man, because you need 8 different streaming services to watch all the games.
No, it literally feels less meaningful to me when it's on Peacock compared to when it's a standalone game on a national channel, like the stakes just feel different because the accessibility is different. And I'm sure a bunch of people are watching just on streaming sites, right? Illegal streaming sites, because NFL can't stop that. But it is weird. The NFL's not going to stop trying to expand. They're not going to stop trying to stretch the limits of how much they can impose NFL games on territory that has traditionally belonged to other sporting events, right? Just related to what you were saying about playing games on every day of the week. Christmas, they want that to be an NFL event, right? That's always been an NBA thing. Friday night's always been high school football. Now they want to make that NFL. And guess what? They're king in the States. So nobody can stop them from doing that. And they seemingly will be rewarded. I think it sucks. I think it's greedy. I do think it's an overreach, but they're going to do that. Opening weekend, it's okay. We can have a Friday night game, but I don't think it's necessary. I do think that like the slate of games is the best, man. And I don't know, having multiple standalone games before that, it does sort of take away from like that collective, holy shit, it's all happening right here, right now moment. On the issue of the international games, which I asked about, I just really wonder how effective it is. Like, I'm with you. I thought the atmosphere in that game was really fun. What percentage of people there, though, I wonder, are actually being converted to football fandom versus what
Well,
percentage of people are there and they're bringing energy and they're having a good time and it's an event to go to and, you know, they've had a little something to drink, like, and that creates for a fun environment. But my experience has always been going to an international school, which I did for 2.5 years in Thailand with kids from all over the world. Nobody who is not American gives a shit about the NFL. And I don't think putting a game in Brazil where they have a national sport that they are more passionate about than like any other country in the world, arguably with soccer, I don't think that that one game is going to change that, right? You get 80,000 people or whatever in that one stadium. They have a fun experience. That's such a small percentage of the overall population. I don't know how many people feel the ripple effect of just like that event being there. And they're like, oh my God, I don't know how many people can watch it because obviously, I mean, the average NFL game is not accessible on TV to people internationally. Maybe there's an exception because the game is in Brazil, but I'm just wondering, like, is this paying off? Because the number of fans that they're citing, right? They say they have 38 million NFL fans in Brazil. I don't know how the hell they define a fan, but I am highly, highly skeptical of that number. So obviously there's enough demand for them to sell out a game. And that's good and that's fine. But it's like the NBA has never had to go play games in other countries to spread the sport. Like, I'm not convinced that that's how it's actually done. I think that games have to be accessible, right? Basketball, soccer, all you need is a ball, a hoop, some shitty net. You might not even need that whatsoever. Football, you need 22 guys. You got to be in pads, right? I mean, you can play flag, you can play whatever else, but not only is that a significant barrier to playing the game, to understanding the game, it's the least intuitive sport that there is, right? It's not a simple, okay, we are trying to put the ball in this basket. We are trying to put the ball in this net. It's all right. What you have is you have 4 downs to get 10 yards. And after 3, you're in all likelihood going to punt, which is instead of throwing or running the ball as we normally do in this sport, you're going to kick the ball off, but not like you would on a kickoff or a field goal. It's going to be a drop punt. Like, it's just an incredibly complex sport. And I do feel that if it's not relevant to the cultural fabric of a place, that it's not really going to catch on. And I guess, hey, the NFL can try. I can't hold that against them, but I just feel like it's going to be a fruitless effort for the most part. And then it's this weird thing where like you are putting stress on players and it is significantly more travel and you're taking away a home game from teams and from fans. And you have to make sure that like the conditions are up to NFL standards, which today, obviously that field was rough. I just wonder if all of those components are actually justified by converting international fans to football, which I do think is a really hard thing to do.
I think you hit the nail on the head. The key word that I was going to say is accessibility, right? With viewership primarily on TVs, that's how you really grow the sport. Well,
Mm-hmm.
you're not helping the case by having all of these paywalls behind all of these different streaming services
Oh, absolutely.
to watch the game. I read an article today about Manu Ginobili and how he discovered basketball. It was because some Argentinian channel started playing basketball games on the TV late at night like after midnight, and Ginobili would stay up and watch the games, and that's how he learned about the game and fell in love with it. You also add in the fact that basketball, netting the ball, soccer, netting the ball, baseball. Hell, man, you could have a bottle cap and a broomstick, right? I mean, that's how some kids play in, the Dominican Republic and other countries. You don't need a whole lot. Football, you need helmets, you need a ball, you need a field, you need a coaching staff, you need all this equipment. To me, if you really wanted to grow the sport and make it like internationally accessible, the way to do that is to get it on cable, easy channels for other countries to watch on, make it more accessible that way, and to just straight up give them resources like equipment. And still, even that, Carson, as you mentioned, soccer is so ingrained in the culture there, and even in some of these other, South American countries, for example. Yeah, baseball, right? Baseball, basketball, and soccer are just so far ahead. I don't even know if, kids would want to play. And then you talk about the physicality and the toll. And also in these other cultures, that's another thing that, I think is hard for the NFL too. It's the hard hits. I don't know how that would be received in other countries, right? In America, it's kind of just, we just got it, right? We got the UFC, and I'm not saying, other countries have fighting sports too, but
rugby.
I just wonder if that would be, that the violent part of football, if that would be as well received in some of these other countries too. But I don't think, if you ask me for my opinion, I don't think that it's going to have any kind of impact on, again, it may be marginal in other kids wanting to play football. It may be marginal in getting more fans. I don't think it's really going to make a meaningful difference just by having the game over there. Accessibility to me is the number one thing. And to do that, I think the NFL would have to be less greedy. I think they'd have to probably take away some of their profits and sacrifice their profits for accessibility. To me, that would be the best way to grow the sport internationally, is to just have easier access through TV or through the internet. Or, that's the beautiful thing about the NBA, man. And I know the NFL will put the highlights up and stuff. I can basically get NBA tape immediately after on NBA.com. I can go and look at any highlight, any shot I want on NBA.com. The NFL still puts Game Pass behind a very expensive paywall after the fact. And so, again, I think the NFL would have to sacrifice profit for accessibility if they really wanted to grow the sport internationally. And I think the NFL is too greedy to do that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point, especially for international fans. But as you mentioned, like, it's even getting tougher for American fans to access these things that have historically been accessible with just, a simple cable subscription. So it is going to be an interesting thing to continue to track. I'm really interested in what any fans, if whatever percentage of fans we have who watch our NFL content, who are from other countries, which I guarantee you is way, way smaller than it is for the NBA, I would be interested, especially if there's any Brazilian fans who are watching, who are jazzed up on this game or anything. Like, I can't claim to be the expert on this. I just have my experiences with international people, and I have my intuition about the fact that the NFL is just an extremely, extremely American-centric sport, and I don't think that is an easy thing to change. All right. Any final thoughts on this game, Logan, before we talk quickly about the upcoming slate?
Last thing I want to touch on, I was really critical of Philadelphia's secondary. I do want to give props to Quinyon Mitchell. I thought he had a really good debut. It's not a perfect debut. There are a few plays where he's in the wrong spot, where he blows coverage. I still think they're going to struggle. Like, I don't like Avonte Maddox. I think Darius Slay is okay at this point in his career. He's good. He's not great where he was at the apex of his powers. I like the Mitchell acquisition, though, and I'm glad that they addressed that in the offseason. I hope C.J. Gardner-Johnson is going to be healthy. Like, I think the Eagles are better. They're going to be in a better spot than they were last year. It just depends. Are they better in terms of going from the number 31 secondary to the number 16 secondary? Or are they going to go from being the number 32 secondary to the number 25 secondary? Because that's a very big difference. I thought it was an encouraging debut for Mitchell, and I do think they got better in that respect. But again, it's how much of an improvement did Philadelphia really make?
Yeah. Well, remains to be seen. So, real quick, before we get out of here, Logan, We have a full slate of games, of course, for this Sunday. What's your upset of the week pick here?
I've got 3 games actually that I'm
Well,
going
that's
to
a
go against the
violation.
grain.
Okay.
And I'm going to start. This may just be my Logan Camden bias showing here.
Here we go.
I'm going to take the Panthers over the Saints. This is a full training camp of Dave Canales and Bryce Young. I'm hoping that Bryce can come out of the gates hot. This is against a good Saints defense. I just have no faith in Derek Carr. And so I'm going to pick against Derek Carr, and I'm going to take the Panthers to beat them.
Well, the Saints suck, so, it's not even a mid-off here. It's a shit-off.
Yeah, I think this is going to be, if the Panthers win this game, it's going to be like a 16-13. It's going to be a dookie fest.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's hear your others. I mean, I only brought the one upset of the week.
I'm going to take the Raiders over the Chargers. I'm really high on the Raiders this year. Yeah, I like the Raiders a lot. And I like Harbaugh too, but again, I think it's a multi-year thing. I think the Raiders can have their way a little bit against this Chargers defense. And I think they've got a good defense, man. I think the Raiders are going to be a good defense this year. And then my final one, I think I got to go all in. This one probably isn't going to happen. I'm going to take the Jaguars over the Dolphins too. I buy into Trevor Lawrence. And, this isn't really a home game for either team. This is a Miami battle. And I think the Jaguars are going to have to beat some good teams this year if they're going to get to where I think they're going to be at. And it'll start against Miami. To me, that game, it starts with this pass rush getting home against Miami. I don't think this offensive line is still very good for Miami. Miami does a phenomenal job of drawing up schemes and really quick-hitting passing plays to avoid that, right? But I think Jacksonville matches up with them pretty well. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on Jacksonville. If you ask me for my sleeper team this year, it would be the Jaguars. I think a lot of people have gotten way too low on Jacksonville because of the sky-high expectations they had for Trevor Lawrence. I don't think the Jags are a bad football team. I don't think they're great, but I think they're good. And I think a lot of people are sleeping on them. So those are the teams I'm looking for in week 1.
I like the Jags shout. I'll give a shout out to another AFC South team, actually an AFC South matchup. I feel pretty strongly about this one as my favorite upset pick for the week. I'm taking the Colts to beat the Texans. They're 3-point dogs at home. And there's been 2 teams, Logan, and it was actually very predictable that these would be the 2 teams that I feel like people have gotten too high on throughout the offseason. One was the Packers, who I like, again, but I didn't view them as a powerhouse as some did. The other one, in some ways, their counterpart in the other conference, is the Texans. Those were the 2 young, surprising teams with the fun, super exciting, emerging franchise quarterbacks who were hot at the end of the year, who won a playoff game. And I think that led some people to overlook that it was surprising for a reason how good they were last year, that they weren't like super convincing regular season teams. And the Texans, of course, have the improvement in adding Stephon Diggs, which is a flashy move that the Packers can't match offensively, although McKinney's a very big add as well. But I just think people are riding a little too high on the Texans right now. I think the Colts are better in the trenches overall. I mean, that offensive line is awesome, but I like their defensive line too. I think their receiving room might be a little underrated. I do think Michael Pittman, he's not the most fun watch, but he's very consistently productive. I think Josh Downs is explosive. They can run the football. And I like Anthony Richardson a lot. And I'm kind of optimistically saying that he's going to have a splashy return to action here. Of course, the Texans also add Daniil Hunter. Like, I think the Texans are good. I think they're the better team. But to me, the Colts being 3-point dogs at home, I like that line. And I do think that having that sort of advantage in the trenches, divisional game, gives you a good shot at any time. And I think the Colts are better than some people are giving them credit for.
I like that pick. And there are aspects of the Colts that I do like too. You mentioned Josh Downs. I think Mitchell is going to be an explosive weapon if they can get him into space. I mean, that guy has wheels. Jonathan Taylor, I think, is poised, played his way back into, game shape down the second half of last year, is going to be fully healthy coming into this year. The reason I was so low on the Colts, and the thing that does make me skeptical, is Anthony Richardson. I just have red flags about Richardson. 17 career starts coming into this game. That's, I believe, after high school. I think that's college.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing that scares me about Anthony Richardson. I think Steichen's brilliant. I think Jonathan Taylor is awesome and can carry the weight of being an offensive engine. I think this offensive line is phenomenal. I just think there's going to be some growing pains in games with Anthony Richardson where, he's not making great decisions, where he's a little bit inaccurate. And that's typical with any young quarterback. And so I just think there are going to be games where Anthony Richardson is going to have to make all the throws, when he's going to have to lead the drives and be perfect. And I think there's going to be some growing pains there. So as long as the Colts don't burden that weight of being, as long as they simplify things for him. And that is the beauty of picking the Colts, right? Steichen did that for Jalen Hurts. I think that's inarguable, right? I mean, simplified the hell out of their game plan for Hurts. I mean, that was the best year of his career. And I think Steichen is well equipped to do that here with the talent that he has around Richardson. But I think there's going to be a few games where Richardson has to go above and beyond.
I think it's going to be an up and down year for Richardson, but I think that there's going to be more good than bad. I do think accuracy needs to be more consistent. Processing needs to be more consistent. But from what we did see last year, I thought he was further along than I would have expected, considering just how he was viewed as a prospect, how raw he was considered, how little experience he did have. And then, I mean, he has special A+ physical tools. It looks like Josh Downs was actually announced out today. So you know what, AD Mitchell, it's time for you to step up immediately, buddy. I'm sticking with my pick, although I do worry about the depth in the receiving room, because after those three, I mean, you're not really getting anything from the tight end position, and the rest of the receiving core is a little bit rough, but they'll run the damn football.
I saw this from a Justin Fields fan page, so I'm not 100% sure. But Carson, I have an inkling that Justin Fields is going to be the starter for the Steelers week 1. Russell Wilson is still dealing with a calf strain that he sustained in preseason. I think Fields is probably going to be the starter week 1 for the Steelers, and I think that's interesting. I'll leave it at that.
I cannot think of a less reliable source, though, than the Justin Fields fan page. I mean, that's like getting told to spit on that thing by Hawk Tua Girl.
Oh, my God.
Another one of my classic cultural references.
Carson, someone has to take your phone away from you, bro. I wanted to crawl into a ball.
Have you seen this? Have you seen what I'm talking about?
I'm not familiar, actually.
Okay.
Could you explain it in depth to me?
So you've seen those street interviews, right, where guys go around and they ask all sorts of nasty questions.
What's your biggest ick, or,
stuff like that, right? This one was a little bit more salty, Logan. I'll be real with you. The question was, what's something you do that makes all the guys go wild in bed? Okay, and he's asking
this.
How
crass. That's kind of...
It was very crass.
Strange.
It was ungentlemanly. That wasn't in my taste, but you won't believe it. Here's what she says. She looks at him and she goes, "You got to hawk Tua and spit on that thing."
No way.
I mean, just the audacity, right?
Saying that to a stranger.
Personally, I've never seen anything like it. But anyways, it's sort of a big meme, and I don't know, it's sweeping the nation.
Man, I'm going to have to get my dial-up internet fixed.
You got to hawk Tua and spit on that thing. I mean, it's just unbelievable. This is not your grandmother's interview, folks. Kids, avert your eyes and ears. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Dude, you had some banger tweets today, man. That was not one of them, unfortunately.
Nah, I'm just speaking from the heart. That was like 2 months ago.
Yeah, so I mean, officially.
Oh, the calf strain. I thought they were talking about Hawk Tua. I was like, no, this is as relevant as ever.
Russell Wilson, is questionable. So I think Fields is going to start, and that kind of sucks, man, because I remember that. I remember the odds they had, and it wasn't who starts for the Steelers. It's first quarterback to throw a pass for the Steelers. So if anybody did take that, they're probably going to win that bet. I think Fields, and if Fields has a good game, I mean, dude, that could get Russ sent to the bench for the whole year. Like, I don't know, man. This whole Steelers QB situation is going to be weird, man. It's going to be something to monitor the whole year.
Are you excited about the Fields start?
Very much so. I'm way more excited than throwing Russ out there. Like, Fields is a legitimate playmaker. Again, it's like I said last time when we talked about this. I think Russ gives you – I think Russ would be more consistently shitty. Fields is probably going to give you some more peaks, but he's also going to have those nasty valleys where he's got some disastrous plays. It's going to be a roller coaster this year, man.
Yeah. Well, as the great Lamar Jackson said, fuck throwing the ball.
Yeah, man, right?
Justin Fields game plan. I mean, there's more to be excited about with Fields. There's also more to be disappointed over when you realize that he still can't read the field and he can't process and he can't make the throws. I don't know how to tell you this. That's going to happen, unfortunately.
And then he turns into a pickle. Funny
Classic.
shit I ever seen.
Classic. One of the great memes of all time. All right, guys, that's enough. I don't know what the hell happened in these last few minutes. Who let us have fun? Am I right, Logan? Appreciate you guys. We will be back on Sunday because there's going to be more football to talk about, and I personally cannot wait. So we will be back after all those games Sunday night. Tune in for that. If you want more of our content, then we have already our reaction to the Thursday night game. We have all of our season preview content that you can still catch up on before every team kicks off this week. And of course, we have all of our trivia content. We have all of our NBA content lists, rankings from throughout the summer. We have some more in-depth video essay, film breakdown content on our YouTube channel about the NBA. And you can listen to the podcast across audio platforms. You can also check us out across social, Instagram, TikTok at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh, see graphics from the show, clips from the show, and all of our short form trivia content. If you want to chat with the fellas, get your takes off during NFL season, you can join our Discord. The link to that is at the link tree across our social media bios. And you can check out our merch at thevolume.com. So with that, as always, I've been Carson Brabber.
I've been Logan Camden.
Hawk Tua.